to build a future where no one needs to come out anymore. Together, we can create a world where everyone has the right to love, to succeed, to have a family, and to live a full, happy life. I am so excited to be here today with my guest of honor, the one and only that inspired me to create this podcast, my loving son, Andrei. Welcome, Andrei.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you for willing to be vulnerable. I know that is uncomfortable, and I also know that you are confident with who you are. I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
For starters, tell us a little bit about yourself. How old are you? What are your interests?
Okay, well, I'm 15 and I'm currently in school, and my hobbies include music, that being piano or theater or singing, practically any section of music.
Great, thank you. So let's jump in and let's go back to the age where you figure out or suspect or knew that you are gay. Do you remember when that was?
Yeah, I have a rough idea. I mean, I was always told that I was special or great, and I didn't know if that meant I was just being smothered by a parent or if it meant that I was just really different from everybody else. But I always sensed that there was something that everyone else had that I didn't. And it was around when I was 11 that I began to notice that all of my guy friends were talking about girls, and I just couldn't relate. But I didn't really know what that meant yet. It didn't click in my head that that meant I was gay. It just meant that I wasn't interested in anybody. But it was around the time that I was 12, probably, when I finally put it together, like, oh, I like guys. And that just everything made sense to me from then.
So what did you do with that new learnings about yourself?
It was a matter of figuring out if this was okay, if society allowed this, because I wasn't necessarily exposed to a lot of gay culture when I was young. It was not that my family was against it, it's just that it never was a big part of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really knew how society viewed the LGBT community.
Right. So I'm curious, for a 12 years old, how much of that concern was about the view of society and how much of that concern was about the view of your family or your friend?
Well, every 12-year-old boy or girl, gay or straight, worries about being accepted. It just comes from different reasons. Like, many people are worried about how they look. Like, do they seem attractive? Like, it's silly to think about 12-year-olds worrying about this, but that's how society is now. It's all about your image.
Yeah, it's not silly. Unfortunately, it's the reality.
Mm-hmm. Also, they are worried about if you're coming off mean or kind or friendly. So being gay was like at the back of my mind. My main worry was how my personality was. Like, I feel like even at a young age, I realized that sexuality didn't necessarily define who I was. It was just a part of who I was.
So mature.
So I was never necessarily worried about my mother or my friends accepting me for being gay. I figured that if they appreciated who I was, they just accept being gay as sort of an aspect of who I was, not necessarily as entirely who I am.
Exactly. It's just a part of you. That's very well said. Thank you for that. Now, from that moment till you come out to me was another 2 years. So what happened in that 2 years?
Well, there was a lot of other things happening in life that just made me think about how this can wait. I don't need to come out right now. And when I became aware of my sexuality, I started researching and found out that a lot of people didn't even come out until, well, some people never came out really. Others waited until late adulthood, and the few that came out at my age were struggling from what I've heard. So I figured that if I've had all the time in the world to come out, why rush it? So I was worried about other things, like how hard it is to be fitting in a normal school or changing countries, making new friends. All of that stuff was a much more important part of my life. At a certain point, I realized that I would have to come out because it just becomes too hard to hide who you are.
Yes, it was a lot of changes. I mean, just a few months before you came out, we changed the country. We moved from United States to New Zealand. You start high school, enroll into a totally different education system, making new friends.
Mm-hmm.
Was a lot of changes. So, with all that playing in a back scene, how did you find the courage to come out?
I feel like anybody would have difficulty coming out regardless of the changes happening in their lives. Granted, everybody, especially teenagers, where you're transitioning from being a child to becoming an adult, they want stability regardless of their sexuality. So the fact that there were other things happening in my life, in fact, made it easier for me to come out because it meant that my sexuality, well, I thought my sexuality would be the least of my loved ones' worries because they too were adjusting to a different lifestyle in a different country.
Interesting. So, with everything that was going on, you figure that your sexuality is definitely not going to be under the spotlight.
Right.
Do you remember the conversation we were having when you came out?
No, I think it was a pretty normal conversation, wasn't it? Because I've just come home from school. Do you?
Of course I do. I'm your mother. We were watching Look Who's Talking.
Oh, right. It was Look Who's Talking, yeah. And it was, you were talking to me about how John Travolta came out as gay so late in life and how he felt so bad for him because he waited so long and he was hiding who he was. And I guess that was a wake up call for me because it was like, whoa, I mean, everything's changing. And I'm not just going to keep using the changes in my life as excuses to procrastinate my coming out because by life's nature, life is ever changing. And if I keep waiting for everything to settle, I'll never come out. So I figured, why wait any longer? And I just told you. Yes.
How that felt like, because I never saw you in such a huge stress as you were in those minutes. I look at you, had no idea what is going to come out of your mouth. All I could see is like, oh my God, my child is in a huge stress.
Well, I think it was a combination of two things. One, hearing about this famous actor having struggles with his sexuality and just like you talking about him like he has like lost so much time in his life by not coming out so early. And that was panicking me. I'm like, oh, I better start and tell you quick or else everything will fall apart or my life will be a lie. So that was one thing. And the other thing was like, it was the same feeling of walking into a classroom and like figuring out there was a big test that you didn't study for because I should have prepared. I felt like I should have prepared because I know a lot of kids spend time thinking about this. They research, they plan something. Some people I've heard just wrote down what they wanted to say like it was a monologue. But I was going into this without preparation and it was panicking me. It was like I didn't know what was going to be on the test. I didn't know how you were going to react and I didn't know if I would pass and you'd accept me.
It did show you were really, really stressed. So do you honestly did not know if I will accept you or not?
I didn't because, well, I knew you were accepting of LGBT community. It's different when it's your own son because people can accept things about society, but they might have a totally different opinion of it when it affects their own lives. And it can go the other way around. There can be homophobic parents that just despise LGBT community, but the second their son or daughter comes out as gay or anything except for straight, they become a little bit more open.
Interesting perspective. I never thought about that. So, do you remember what was it that you felt or what went through your mind? Do you remember my words?
Well, I could hear my heart beating in my ears. And I just remember there being like a silence. Like I kind of said it out of nowhere. I was like, hey, I'm gay. And then you were like, oh, or something like that. And you just seemed shocked. I shouldn't have expected you to not be shocked because it did come out of nowhere. But I was just expecting the best case scenario to be like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. But that's really unrealistic.
And you're right. I was shocked because, as I said, here I am looking at my child. He's in a huge stress and I don't know what's coming.
I remember your initial reaction, and then we had a long conversation after that, but not the specifics.
Yes. I said, "Oh, I knew you perfect." That was my words.
Oh, well, I did not hear that. I wanted to know what you had to say so much, yet I was so much in my own head that I kind of tuned
Yeah.
you out for a second, just overthinking all the possibilities. I just kind of
Yes.
didn't listen. I was just too freaked out.
And that's absolutely understandable. I can't even imagine what you went through. So, how was it like for you afterwards?
Well, it was kind of like it was hanging in the air because I went away feeling like you were all right with it, but I really didn't know how our lives would change. I just went downstairs into my room and tried to take my mind off it, pretend like everything was normal, like I never came out. Kind of, I wasn't happy that I came out for like a few days.
Yes.
I felt like it was a mistake. I felt like everything was okay in our lives. And by coming out, it just made everything more difficult just because it means that there was so much change happening interpersonally in our family now. Like, how would you react? How would my stepfather react? How will our family dynamic change? And will it? And will it be better or worse than it was before? These are all of my thoughts. And I just almost felt bad for coming out because I was afraid that you would not like our relationship as much as it was before I came out. And I was afraid of changing what we had.
Yeah, that was quite a lot for you to take in and know that was not your responsibility for how we might react or how our interrelationships might change. Also, what happened was a personal discovery for myself. I just realized that I had this image of you coming home with an amazing, wonderful girlfriend. And now I needed to replace that with a amazing, wonderful boyfriend. And was nothing wrong about it. And I didn't stop loving you, not even for a fraction of a second. It's just in my mind, I needed a second to rewrite that story.
Right. Well, and I think that's one of the problems because parents, when they have their kids and they think about their future, they imagine them married in the perfect hetero relationship. But if parents in the future or parents now in general didn't have children and just automatically set them as heterosexual as the expectation, it would be easier on the parent and the child for when they come out. There shouldn't be expectations on gender or sexuality until the child has fully formed who they are as a person, because it's not until you realize your personality, and the child themselves needs to figure out who they are, and then the parent will mold their expectations of them accordingly. It's not the other way around, because in the end it is the child's life.
I hear you and I respect that this is your opinion. As a parent, when my son is 2 or 3, I have no way of knowing if my son is gay or transgender. So I won't just go and put a dress on him, right?
Of course.
But what I can do as a parent is to make sure that I have an open mind first and that I'm raising my kid in a way that we have open communication and he is allowed to fully express and feel safe to come to me with whatever the issue might be.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So, in that initial conversation, I encourage you to come out to your friends. And do you remember what you said?
Well, I told you I would not come out at the school I am at.
Right. And this was a part of the conversation. And we will come back to this because it's important. But when I encourage you to open up to your close friends, thinking that you could have their support, what you said was, Mom, did you came out as straight when you were a teenager?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
That was like you took that seed and you planted deep, deep, deep into my brain. And that seed grew into where we are today. In this space where the intention is to create a world where No one needs to come out anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how do you understand this expectation of coming out?
I think it's mainly because of developed these norms, which norms are just how humans work. We want stability, we want everything to be planned, expected, so that there are nothing to surprise us, to shake us off. So we just assume every little boy is straight, every little girl is going to wear dresses, and then that makes everything easier for everyone. But I think we can make the norm to be unexpected, if that makes sense. We can make it a norm to be like, you have the choice to tell us who you are, and no one should expect you to be straight.
Well, the main thing is we don't want to confuse gender with sexuality.
I'm saying both of those terms, which are different, they are different, are applicable in the situation, because not every boy should be expected to be a boy, just like not every boy should be expected to be straight. And the same goes for girls or any other gender.
Right. So what I'm hearing you saying is just let that child grow until figure out who he or she is, and let them tell you, this is who I am and this is who I identify with.
Yes, exactly.
Before I forget, let's go back to discuss about the reason you did not want to come out to your friends in your school.
They claim to be accepting, and to an extent they are, but the students don't bear that same mindset, as I shouldn't expect them to. They're kids, they're teenagers. They're so worried about being accepted themselves. They disenfranchise other members of their groups to make themselves feel better. And that's just how the teenage mind works.
Right. Now, back then, I also encouraged you to join the Rainbow Club in your school. And you were standing very firm, saying no to that. Yet, a couple of weeks ago, you joined. Do you mind elaborating on that?
Since I came out a year ago, I thought about what you said to me about why haven't I come out? Am I going to come out? Should I join the Rainbow Group? And all of those concerns. And I just took the time and evaluated my school and saw a lot of hate. Like, it's a little sad, honestly, because we're all so young, yet we've already decided as people that we don't like people for being different. And that's just so sad. Beside that, I didn't notice that much rainbow group activity. I knew that there was one, but it was very hidden. And I think it was rightfully so, because if they were an out and proud group with events at school and like fundraisers, they would not do well at all, because there's so much homophobia and there's so much hate. Mm-hmm. What changed for you? What made you a year later to change your mind and join the club? Well, it was actually one of my closest friends who came out to me about like less than half a year ago. And he told me I was the third person in the world to know that he was gay. And not even his parents know. And no one at school knows aside from me. So sad. And I'm like, he must feel so oppressed. But then I took a minute and thought, that's exactly what I'm doing. And I thought it was kind of my duty to him, as I came out to him before he came out to me. It was my duty to him to be proud of who I am, so that he saw that he too could be proud and he'd feel safe being who he was at school. Kind of, I wanted to be a role model, maybe be proof to him that it was okay and that he should feel safe to come out to his parents too. Yes. Well, I do want to recognize that it takes courage and work to take that responsibility of becoming a role model for your peers. And I'm really proud of you. Thank you. Tell me, how is it for you to be there for your friends when they came out to you? Well, I feel honored that they told me, but I also feel really sad, because I totally empathize with their situation, that they don't feel comfortable telling the rest of their friends that they're gay, or telling their families that they're gay, especially those who come from extremely traditional backgrounds, with families that are either extremely religious or come from cultures where there's no acceptance of LGBT yet. Mm-hmm. So how a 15 years old can help and support another 15 years old? What did you do specifically? I came out to some of our shared friends so that he would see how they'd react. and hopefully know that it was okay for him to come out too, because they too would accept him and he'd have other people supporting him. We're still working on that. He hasn't come out to any of our shared friends yet, and hopefully after my involvement with the Rainbow group that I joined, I could get more ideas or tools for helping people like him feel safe coming out to friends, because not everybody feels confident to begin with, not even just with sexuality, just with themselves in general. And then when you have to worry about coming out to people on top of having them accept you as a person, that's exceptionally difficult.
I can't even imagine how that feels like. Must be very difficult.
You can feel alone. You can feel like coming out is just such a abstract idea. It's such a dream, almost like a joke. Like it'll never happen. Just feel like you as a person will never be accepted. And then you start to rationalize and normalize your loneliness to the point where it just becomes a part of who you think you are. And that's so sad and so heartbreaking, because it's so hard to get someone out of that position. Right. I'm glad every day that I have people supporting me with my sexuality and with who I am, because when you start to normalize your loneliness and your pain and your suffering, you don't reach out because you think to yourself, this is just how it'll always be.
What you will say to someone that is experiencing something like you just described?
I would encourage everyone to come out to their family, because the sooner they know who you really are, the sooner they'll have the chance to accept you for who you are. And that might not be immediately. And it's a scary thought, but that might not be ever. But you'd have freedom from that, and you wouldn't always feel like you're being oppressed by what they might think of you. You'll know what they think of you.
Right.
You're able to move on from that.
Well, I don't know how it feels like for a child, but as a parent, the fact that you didn't come out to me from the moment that you knew, it made me feel a little bit sad. First of all, because you were dealing with this on your own. Well, I could have been there to support you. Mm-hmm. And second, might sound a little bit selfish, but it just felt that I did not have the whole of you all that time. It felt like I missed out.
Mm-hmm. Well, you did. You can think about it like, and even now I'm not my 100%, because like I said before, my sexuality doesn't complete me. It just is a part of me. And since I'm still only 15, I haven't figured out who I am fully anyways, outside of who I like.
Right.
So I'm just choosing what parts of me to develop first, if that makes sense, because there's so many different aspects of personalities that we have to find out about ourselves. Like, are we kind? Are we patient? Who do we like to surround ourselves with? And who we like romantically is just such a small part of that. I just happen to take those 2 years of my childhood to figure out that on my own.
Yes, and I respect that. As many other things that you will need to figure out as you grow and evolve. And I'm very confident because you are doing an amazing job already.
Thanks.
So reach out to your family, and also there is support groups and clubs.
Exactly. And I encourage anyone who's in school, or even adults, join your local LGBT community, because it's so relieving to hear that there are others like you in your position and that you aren't alone. Because it's one thing to have like straight friends supporting you, and that's awesome. But to be in a community where there are others like you, it's just so empowering, because you actually hear that there are so many others like you that feel the same way.
Yes, it's important to feel that you belong. Now, I remember how you told me that teenagers are using the word gay as a derogatory word, and how that changed after you came out to your friends. Do you mind sharing about that?
When I came out to my friends and talked to them about my sexuality, I didn't even have to tell them to stop using that word. They just tried their best not to. So by coming out, you're not only helping yourself, you're helping people outside of the LGBT community understand that there are people like you and that they should be careful what they say, because they don't know if their closest friend is gay, and you're just pushing your friends away without knowing it.
So powerful. Wow, very well said. If you could change any of your experiences from the whole process of coming out, what is it that you will change?
Personally, I don't think I'd want that much to change about my experiences, because while they weren't perfect and they might have not been the most dramatic coming out, they resulted in acceptance and me feeling comfortable with who I am to anyone that's putting off coming out or stressing about coming out. I'm just telling you that it's not going to be perfect, and don't worry about that, because it's not about how you say it and it's not about what you do, what actions you take. It's about the message itself. And
Yes.
you only need to say 2 words. The rest will solely depend on your relationship with that person.
Right. And that reminds me of I had my suspicions since you were little, and I kept laid out different circumstances for you to be comfortable to come out. And when I asked you about it, you simply said that you were not ready.
Mm-hmm.
What that means? How do you know you're ready?
I don't know what being ready meant to me at the time, but looking back on it now, I think it meant more being secure with who I am in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I have to accept myself first before other people do. So you do research on YouTube, on Logo TV, on anything, and figure out what being gay meant and then what it meant to you. And then you figure that out in your head so that when you do come out, you're ready to be that person.
Mm-hmm.
And
you own it.
You own it. Yes, you own it. To be honest, I thought I knew who I was as a gay guy when I came out. But you only know once you actually live the experience, when you actually have people aware of your sexuality. I don't think you'll be completely sure what being gay is until you come out.
That makes sense. Thank you for explaining it to me, and hopefully this will help others in understanding a little bit more about this complex process. A few months ago, you came out on Instagram. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I came out publicly in June. And it's still people are asking me about it because they don't know if I was kidding. People in our society are making it difficult for gay people to come out by using gay as a joke. And they're like, ha ha ha, me too. And I'm like, okay, great. But you know I'm not kidding. And they're like, wait, what? You're gay? It's like I have to come out twice to each person I tell. It's like that.
What about in everyday life? Is it your life different than another teenager that is not gay?
A few people have done the stereotypical straight response where I tell them I'm gay. And they're like, oh, I'm straight, sorry. And I'm like, do straight people automatically assume that because I'm gay, I want to be in a relationship with every guy I see? Because if you do, that's like saying if you're a straight guy, you want to have a relationship with every girl you see.
Oh, wow. I was not aware about this difference. Do you have any message for parents?
Your child is going to, most likely they will be afraid, and all they want is to be accepted by their family because in the end, you matter to them. So just be as accepting as possible, especially if you don't know if they're gay or not. Just make it clear to them that you're okay with LGBT, because the biggest issue with coming out is knowing whether or not you'll be accepted for who you are. Just because your child hasn't come out to you yet doesn't mean that they're straight, and doesn't mean that you can just crack gay jokes left and right. You have to be open to it.
Right.
Even if your child is straight, you shouldn't making gay jokes or talking crap about the LGBT community, because then you're telling them that that's okay. Long as you raise your child to be accepting of everyone, then you're doing your job as a parent.
Yeah. And that's very well said, because it is our responsibility. And as parents, what we are doing when we're raising our kids, we're actually raising our future. Mm-hmm. As simple as that.
Right.
Is it anything else that you want to add?
I wouldn't encourage anyone to feel rushed about coming out. You should take time to figure out who you're comfortable telling and if you're safe and if you know for sure. But at the same time, I wouldn't also say that you should wait years on end just to find that perfect time to come out for something that'll never come. You're waiting for everyone to accept you before they know who you are, and that's impossible.
Right. Very well said.
If there's anyone out there that doesn't feel comfortable talking to anyone or has no friends they can go to, you can talk to me on Instagram. I'm a good listener, and I'll be happy to support you. That's very kind. So how they could find you? You can contact me at Sparky_Pruchacha, Pruchacha on Instagram. Thank you so much. I love you. I love you too.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
And I'm pretty sure that we will have you back in here so you could share about learnings as a active member of the Rainbow Club.
I can't wait. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Redefine Family, a Spark Transformation podcast. Feel free to share your story, knowing that your story could change someone's life. We invite you to spread the love by sharing our message with others. And leave your comments at spark@redefinefamily.com. Until next time, remember that you are the spark in your life. Just shine bright.